This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hi guys, and welcome to Piano and Keyboard Artist, where we discuss the artists related to pianos, keyboards, and synthesizers. And it's another Pet Shop Boys video today, and we're going to analyze Neil Tennant's vocals on the track Heart. I've made this video based on the popularity of a previous video I did, which was this one where I discussed Mark Hollis's vocals in the Talk Talk song It's My Life. I spoke about what type of singer he is and how he uses his voice, and then we analyzed some of his vocal takes from the original multi-track recording. Now I'm going to do the same now in this Pet Shop Boys video, and I've done it as well with Tears for Fears, and you can just check my timeline to see previous videos. But before we jump into today's video, I want to say thank you to our sponsor Skillshare, who is helping us keep the lights on today. Now, as you all know, I will never get behind a product or service or endorse anything that I do not use myself or believe in, but I myself have been using Skillshare for several months now, and as you know, I've been brushing up on my video editing skills. As a long-time user of Logic for production, I'm pretty familiar with the program, but I've been watching this guy, Thomas George, and he's helped me brush up on some of the finer elements of Logic. You'll be surprised, no matter how well you know a program, there's still a lot of the finer details that you can miss out on, and these videos are great because they've really helped me brush up on my skills. The Skillshare interface is easy to use, and you can learn pretty much anything you want to learn. You simply type in what it is you're looking for, and you just get started. For less than $10 a month, it's probably the best money you can spend investing in yourself. Now, to make this great offer even better, my friends at Skillshare have made an exclusive offer for you guys here. Simply click in the description below. You will find a link. That link will take you to the Skillshare page, and you can get Skillshare Premium for a limited period. You've got nothing to lose. Go over there. Now that we've all got a little bit more time on our hands, it's a great way to learn a new skill. So, Neil Tennant, one of the most iconic vocalists of the 80s. Indeed, Pet Shop Boys are said to be the most successful electronic pop music duo in electronic music history, and they are well up there. In one of my videos, I called them, the intellectuals of electro pop. And what stands out about Pet Shop Boys, as I've mentioned in my previous videos, are they were very sort of like unlikely pop stars. Neil Tennant, if you looked at him when he got into it, he was a music journalist. He never had his first hit until he was 31 years old. And he was more like someone that worked as a cashier in a bank, or, someone who came to sell you insurance. But this is what worked for them. Pet Shop Boys knew what they were, and they knew how they wanted to be presented. This, of course, gave their manager at the time, rest in peace, Tom Watkins. Tom Watkins did help them, get the platform. But Tom Watkins was horrified when he heard that they wanted to go out onto stage and, have Chris on the keyboards and him and Neil just standing in the front. Because Neil Tennant, let's face it, he's a very wooden performer. He doesn't groove around and dance. But that actually turned out to be their strength. Unlike everyone at the time who had like dancers and they were like grooving on the stage, along come these two. They look like they work, in a bank, and they look like nerds. But and indeed, they kind of set the standard for the sort of, the two-man synthesizer duo. Of course, there were others, but they really kind of gave it it's okay to be, a bit boring, being boring in a way. And I don't mean that disrespectfully. It's a bit like, if you look at Erasure, just jumping ship, Vince Clarke was kind of the serious synth dude, but then you got Andy Bell in the front there, who's very flamboyant. Well, Pet Shop Boys, different kettle of fish. You've got Chris Lowe, who kind of like Vince Clarke was very sort of static, but he really sort of played on the sort of static persona, glasses, cap. For years, I never knew what Chris Lowe looked like. And in fact, I saw a photo of him without glasses once, and I thought, oh, is that what he looks like? Just understand that I think Pet Shop Boys were absolutely ahead of the curve in what they did, and I still love them very much. But let's analyze Neil Tennant's vocals. Now, as I've explained in my previous videos when we spoke about Tears for Fears and Mark Hollis from Talk Talk, I'm going to demonstrate how it is that Neil Tennant uses his voice. Once again, I'm not trying to sound like him, and I need to exaggerate certain things in order to hammer the point across. Now, what type of singer is Neil Tennant? You remember I've said you get technical singers and you get emotional singers. I have to repeat this all again, so pay attention. Nobody is 100% an emotional singer, and no one is 100% a technical singer. What do I mean by these terms? Well, I've often seen this in musical theatre, and in fact, a lot of singers I've recorded over the years have had sort of musical theatre or classical musical background training. And what I find with a lot of these singers, they are able to kind of just turn it on. They can come to the studio after they've had a really shitty day. You know, they might have come to the studio and they nearly had a run-in with someone, and they come to the studio and they're all rattled and pissed off. But then as soon as they go into the vocal booth and they start singing, they're able to turn on a happy performance. That is what we call technical singers. They're able to just turn it on. No matter how they're feeling, they can just turn it on. And usually I find people who've had professional training, not always, but often, they are very good at this. Then you get emotional singers. Emotional singers are very often, not always, but often people who have never studied music, had no training, and they are, a lot of them usually don't have proper vocal technique when they sing. Indeed, when I spoke about Mark Hollis in the previous video, I mentioned, and when we listen to the multi-tracks, you can hear by the way Mark Hollis, the way he used to sing, that he probably never went for, you know, classical singing lessons, and you don't need to, because this is pop music and rock music. It's not the same thing. But the point I'm trying to make is Mark Hollis was a very emotional singer, and you could just feel that emotion coming through. So once again, just to illustrate what I'm trying to say, is you get emotional singers who, if an emotional singer came to the studio and they were having a bad day, you couldn't get them to sing a happy song, because it's just they're emotional people. That's just not going to happen. Once again, a lot of the people I've dealt with from, you know, sort of musical theatre backgrounds, people who've studied acting and drama, they're very good at coming in and, they come to the studio. God, you're having a bad day. What's wrong? Oh, I just nearly had a run-in with someone. Oh, okay. Anyway, sing this happy song. Boom, they can turn it on. But if it's a very emotional type singer, you're not going to get a happy performance from a emotional singer if they're having a bad day. Once again, I also said that it doesn't matter what type of singer you are, whether you're an emotional or a technical singer, no one sits on the far side of the scale. Most people are a little bit more to the emotional side, and some people are a little bit more to the technical side, you know, but no one is on extreme polar opposites. Now, I talked about Mark Hollis being a very emotional singer when we talked about Talk Talk, a lot more to the emotional side. Now, Neil Tennant is an interesting one, because to me, I would say he's more of an emotional singer. He's not, when I say he's not technical, I doubt that Neil Tennant has had, maybe he sang in the choir when he was younger, but he doesn't have he's not an outstandingly great singer. And you guys know that I love this type of music. Even people like Bernard Sumner, who a lot of people say can't sing. I've often said, if you put take Bernard Sumner out of New Order and get someone like Michael Bublé, who can really sing, how crap would New Order sound with Michael Bublé? No disrespect to Michael Bublé, but you understand? I think it was David Burns said something along the lines of, you can get to a point that if you can sing too well, you're almost unconvincing. He said it in a lot better way than I've just explained it, but there is a lot of truth in that. That's why in a lot of cabaret bands, sometimes these singers are so amazing, it's just flawless. But I find singers like Mark Hollis and singers like that, because they are so flawed, and Gary Newman's another one, it's because you feel that sincerity. Now, Neil Tennant, to me, is a strange one, because he's an emotional singer, meaning I don't think he's classically trained, and he doesn't have that perfect technique, and we don't like that perfect technique. We like real singers and real artists. But Neil Tennant, I would say is an emotional singer, but at the same, so remember, he has extreme technical, he has extreme emotional. Mark Hollis would be very far onto the emotional side. Whereas Neil Tennant would probably be, here's the middle, he'd probably be a step onto the emotional. So he's an emotional singer. But at the same time, as a performer, Neil Tennant is quite, some people would say boring, but he's very cool. You know, he's very cool. And the way he talks, it's a little bit nasally in a way. You know, it's kind of, you know, he's got that kind of twang in his. Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand, it's pointing your head. You think you're mad, too unstable, kicking in chairs and knocking down tape. It's very conversational. You know, it's not difficult. When he talks, it's very easy. And he kind of when he talks, he sings like he talks. You listen to Neil Tennant when he talks, and then when he sings, it sounds very similar. Random example, think of Dave Vaughn from Depeche Mode. When he talks in a certain way, and when he sings, the voice, you almost go, is that, you know, you get these singers where you go, they talk in a certain way, but their singing voice is completely different. Well, Neil Tennant is one of those singers that he's when he's singing, his singing voice is exactly like his talking voice. Now, this is a good thing for Neil Tennant. His voice to me is very conversational. And you will see when we get to the multi-track analysis of his vocal, how they layer his voice to give it that signature type sound. In fact, I think it was Robbie Williams on a interview I once said, because Robbie Williams did a collaboration with the Pet Shop Boys, and Robbie Williams said that Neil Tennant is one of his favorite voices. Now, this is the thing about Neil Tennant's voice. It is a very pleasant, pleasing voice to listen to. It's not everyone's cup of tea, but if you listen to it, it's very effortless. Now, he doesn't put a lot of effort into his singing. I don't mean that in a bad way, but if you listen to it, it's like, my heart stops missing a beat every time, every time. It's easy. A lot of the placement of his voice is in the sort of, I would say, he uses a lot of twang. In fact, when he talks, he has a lot of twang. Twang is that sharp sort of nasal sound, and the placement of his voice. Remember, the placement is where you place the sound. Once again, extreme example, Axl Rose, when I look into your eyes. You know, that's a real sort of pharyngeal, sort of like upper head voice, sharp placement, which helps cut through a mix. Other singers, like, I've used the example before, Roland Orzabal from Tears for Fears. Something happens and I'm head over heels. A lower larynx position. Oh, that lower larynx position. Well, Neil Tennant's is more, every time I see you, something happens to me. You know, it's a higher placement, light, easy sort of head voice. And he doesn't strain. He's not like emotional, you know, like you get these singers who are like really emotional. He's not. He's very wooden. Sometimes you're better off dead. There's a gun in your hand, it's pointing at your head. He's easy, but it works perfectly for their music. I'm even thinking of Absolutely Fabulous. You know, that's quite high, but he's not putting much effort into it. And when I say he's not putting much effort into it, I'm not saying he's not caring about it. It's not like absolutely. It's not like that. It's just absolutely fabulous. It's just easy. So that is what I like about their music. To me, the Pet Shop Boys music has always been easy listening. Now, I hate easy listening music, if you know what I mean, like middle of the road stuff. But Pet Shop Boys music is easy listening in the good way, especially if you listen to it with headphones. When he says, sooner or later, this happens to everyone, You can live your life lonely if that's what you want. It's easy, and it's just really pleasing on the ears. I do love Neil Tennant's voice, and I hope I've explained myself properly. Once again, he's an emotional singer. This side being extreme technical and this being an extreme emotional singers. Remember, Mark Hollis would be very far to that side. But this being the dead center, I would say Neil Tennant is a step to the emotional side. I always spoke about Pet Shop Boys when I saw them when they first came out. To me, I always thought they were very British. It was very like stiff upper lip, and that's what I loved about them. They knew what type of performers they were, so they didn't try to be what they weren't, and it's worked perfectly in their favor. So that's Neil Tennant. One step into the emotional side of the singing scale spectrum. Iconic, easy, distinct, and one of my favorite electronic artists of all time. Right, we're now going to jump into the multi-tracks of the song Heart. Now remember, for this video, we are only going to analyze the vocal parts. If you want to see the video where I analyze the full track, including the drums, the bass, the synthesizers, and everything, then feel free to join my Patreon community where you can see that full video. The reason I do it that way is mainly due to copyright reasons. Once I play full tracks on YouTube here, the algorithm will block the video. So for today's video, we can only analyze the vocal parts. Right, let's jump into the other computer over there and let's see what Mr. Neil Tennant did in the recording of Heart. Right, and here we have the multi-track session for the song Heart by Pet Shop Boys. All the tracks have been loaded into Logic. As you can see, there is a total of 31 tracks. And I've got them all color-coded according to categories. At the top here in purple, I've got the vocals. In pink here are kind of like the backing vocals and sort of other vocal samples. I've got the drums in brown. Dark blue here we have the synth basses. Purple there's a sequencer. And here in the sort of bluey, greeny color, I have the PPG pads and some other pads, the Jupiter pad. The strings, the piano, the guitar, and the orchestra. But anyway, as I said, for this video, we are only going to focus on the vocals because when you play full tracks of audio, copyrighted audio here on YouTube, YouTube will just block the video or I will run into all kinds of copyright issues. So we're going to just focus on the vocals. And if you want to see this full video with the multi-tracks, then please do join my Patreon community. Okay, so focusing in on the vocals that are these four parts here. What's nice when you hear these songs in isolation, just in their parts, remember we're used to hearing these songs as finished songs. Indeed, that is the way you listen to music. But there's something really intimate about sort of just listening to, in this case, Neil Tennant in the vocal booth. Just no effects. It's just the raw nakedness of his voice, if you will. So it's almost like you're standing in the vocal booth with him and you can hear every breath and every sound he makes with his mouth and everything. It's very intimate, very honest, and it's fascinating to hear. So, Mr. Tennant, let's hear how you sang this.
Every time I see you, something happens to me, like a chain reaction between you and me. My heart starts missing a beat. My heart starts missing a beat every time. Every time.
It's just a dry vocal straight into a microphone. There's no effects or anything there. And what's interesting is you can actually hear the vocals or the spill. Now remember the spill or the bleed. That is when a singer goes into a recording booth. They're singing into the microphone. They've got a pair of headphones. And what you can hear in the background there is you can hear the sound coming from the headphones going into the microphone. And that's what we call spill or bleed. And that is what we as engineers are always trying to eliminate. Of course, what's fascinating to see is when you look at songs like this, songs of this level that are this iconic, and when you analyze the parts and then you realize there is actually spill and bleed, and there are flaws in the recording, but that doesn't stop the record from being great. And this is great for you, the up-and-coming producer or recording artist, just to understand that the records that we look up to are not flawless, and that was indeed the case when you watched the Talk video. But let's just listen to some more of Neil's voice here, and I'm going to pause comment.
Every time if I didn't love you, I would look around for someone else. But every time I see you, you have the same effect. My heart starts missing a beat. My heart starts missing a beat. Every time. Oh, every time. Oh, every time.
Now, it's a good vocal performance, but if this was a modern production, that a lot of those lines would probably be tuned. You know, you'd run it through auto-tune or some kind of tuning software, and you would, you just tweak and, make it, you'd make it better. We don't want to go into another subject, but auto-tune didn't exist in these days. In those days, if you want to do, you had to sing it over and over until you got it in tune, and that's a different subject.
Every time I hear your heartbeat next to me, I'm in love with you. I mean what I say, I'm in love with you, and you don't know what it means to be with you.
Okay, so that's the first vocal track. Now, there are actually 4 vocal tracks within this session. So to give it that sort of iconic Pet Shop Boys sound, what they did was they did multi-layering of the vocal. Now, usually, if you're a producer, you'll know this, but usually in a song, often, the singer will sing it and then they will double up. This is known as doubling or chorus effect. And what that means is you sing the song and then you sing it again. So essentially you have a second recording of the exact same vocal part and you play it alongside that original first part. Now, that is exactly what was done here, up to 4 times. And that's what gives it that sort of like doubling, in this case quadrupling. So in what you have in this performance is you've got 4 versions of Neil Tennant singing at the same time, essentially like having 4 Neil Tennants singing at the same time. So you're hearing his voice 4 different times in unison. Now each vocal take here, these aren't harmonies, they are all exactly the same take, and that's what gives it that doubling effect. And I'm going to demonstrate that now. So you've heard the first take, listen to the second take.
Every time I see you.
Yep, and listen to the third one now.
Every time I see you.
I think, yeah, and now the fourth one.
Every time I see you.
And just the first one again.
Every time I see you.
So I think we can all agree these 4 are all exactly the same. So what we do is, let's play the first one and then we'll bring the second one in and listen to the doubling effect.
Every time I see you.
Bring in the second one.
Something happens to me.
Let's bring in the third one.
Like a chain reaction.
And the fourth one.
Between you and me.
There we go.
My heart starts missing a beat. My heart starts missing a beat. Every time.
And that is indeed the what gave the song its sound. It was Neil Tennant. His voice is layered 4 times. And of course there's delay, compression and other things added to the voice. Remember that when you're playing these multi-tracks now, these are what we call dry. There are no effects on them. They're just dry. The engineer would then sit and he would add compression, delay effects, and he would balance, the mix. Because this isn't mixed. This is just all the sessions, all the parts in the session. As I say, unfortunately here on YouTube we cannot play the music. But what I can do is I can bring in the kick drum just quickly.
Every time.
What's interesting, I want to just quickly show you this, and this is more for the geeks in the community here. If we bring up this kick drum, and let's just quickly bring up a spectral analyzer. Right, now I just want to show you something. Watch this now. This is just for the geeks, really. Notice where all the energy is on this kick. It's kind of I'd say they're at the 100 over there. And I just want to quickly solo the bass, and the bass is here. Let's just put the analyzer on. Oh, there it is. Yeah, notice the bass. A lot of the energy for the bass, I would say, is focused around about the 55 to 60. Now, once again, just for geeks and up and coming producers, whenever you're mixing a record, depending on the subject material, of course, you always have to make that decision, especially with the bottom end, which element is going to take up the lower parts, and which lower element is going to be more of the rhythmic part. In the case of this song, the engineer obviously decided that the bass was going to be the sort of lower, take care of the lower frequencies, and that is why the bass kind of, you can see the fundamental is more sort of in the 50 to 60 area, whereas the kick drum, if I bring that up quickly, you will see its fundamental is more here, sort of in the 100. There we go, you can see it's there sort of more in the 100. And that's just a good way to make sure that your kick and your bass don't clash. Anyway, I don't want to turn this into a geek talk video now. I just really wanted to focus on the vocals on this. So once again, his voice has been heard 4 times. There are 4 different versions of his voice, all sang at the same time. The first one.
My heart starts missing a beat.
The second.
My heart starts missing a beat. Every time.
Third one, and the fourth one.
Ah, every time. Ah, every time. If
I also just want to show you some of these other parts here. So under the main 4 vocal parts here, I've got these in pink, which I've got as sort of like sub vocal parts or like vocal effects. And this one's called FL Light Heartbeats. If we just solo that and see what it is.
beat, 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 heartbeat.
And that's clearly Neil Tennant's voice. Beat, beat, heartbeat. And they've got some kind of telephone effect. You can see here it is again.
Beat, beat, heartbeat.
And you can see they've got it again at the outro of the song.
Beat, beat, heartbeat.
Okay, and then they've got something else here as well, just under here. This is called FLR. What is this? Once again, that's Neil Tennant's voice. He's just going, ah. It sounds very processed, so they're probably doing that through a Fairlight or you know, some kind of sampler, just for special effect. And so I'm just going to bring in the vocals for context, so you can see where about in the song it is. So it's about...
Next to me, I'm in love with you. I mean what I say.
Interesting. Okay, let's look at the next part here. This track here is simply called Voice Samples. What do we got here? And of course, that's one of the iconic parts of the song. I mean, you can listen to that and you can hear that is clearly Neil Tennant's voice. He's obviously sampled it into a sampler, probably a Fairlight, I'm not sure, but they did use the Fairlight a lot in those days. So he'd go into a microphone, into a sampler, and then they'd play it but there's another sound in the background here as well, if you can hear. Listen. It sounds like it's layered with some kind of Vox pad with a very short attack. Yeah, some kind of Vox pad, sorry, with a quick attack and a quick sustain as well. And there's also a it's like a funny like sound in the background. Now that could be some kind of string machine, or it could be, I'm just speculating here, it could be his voice taken and pitched very, very high and then reversed at the same time and layered to give it this effect. So anyway, Who knows how they did it, but comments below, let me know. Yeah, and that was ultimate creativity in the 80s. I just want to quickly play you this. This is hilarious.
Every time I see you.
Now this is really 80s. This reminds me of the Woodpeckers from Outer Space, if you remember that. Now that's definitely some kind of human voice that's been pitched and manipulated. Not necessarily Neil's. It could be a sample that they've used, and yeah, they've done a lot of and they've obviously. But this is pitched. It's not all in the same pitch. You can hear it changes pitch based on the key, based on the note that's being played, so that it's harmonic to the note that's been playing, and that really is just there to add rhythmic element to it. We've got some percussion here. As I say, if you listen to the rhythm of this track, it's very 1, 2, 3, 4, kick, snare, kick, snare. It's a nice kick, that. I mean, as I showed you in the analysis of the frequencies, it's not a very deep kick. The bass frequencies of this song are being taken care by the actual synth bass sound. What they've done here is, because I mean, this is a typically, it's a very 4 on the floor, boom, da, boom, ba. To give the groove a little bit more sort of movement and ebb and flow, they've got this, but they put in these TR-707 percussion. That just gives it a bit of. But anyway, if I'm bringing any more of the musical parts, YouTube will probably pick it up and block the video. But anyway, I just wanted to analyze some of the vocal parts there. I hope you've enjoyed that. Fascinating to just hear songs that you've heard for so many years and just hear the sounds in isolation. Right, I hope you enjoyed that. There's been a lot of requests for this type of video following the success of the first one I did with Talk. A lot more of these analysis videos coming up. As I say, once again, if you'd like to see the full version of this breakdown using all the multi-tracks, the drums, the bass, the synthesizers and everything, feel free to join my Patreon community and you can see it there. The Patreon community is another way to support this channel, and it just helps you see content like this, but in a lot more detail. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave your comments below, let me know what you'd like to see next and anything you'd like to say about the channel in general. Thank you so much, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you on the next video. Adios.